Sit down. My father froze. In 27 years, I'd never used that tone with him. But standing in their Charleston dining room with 37 pages of bank transactions spread across the table like evidence at a crime scene, I wasn't their dutiful daughter anymore. I was a corporate attorney, and they were about to find out exactly what that meant. You owe me $523,847. The color drained from my mother's face. My father's mouth opened, then closed. My sister Tara, the golden child who'd had everything handed to her while I worked 3 jobs through high school, looked like she might actually pass out. "That's impossible," my mother whispered. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Before I show you just how possible it is, and trust me, I have receipts, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Hit subscribe because what my grandmother built into my trust fund agreement? Absolutely genius. And it's about to change everything. My name is Arya Rivers. I'm 27 years old, blonde hair, blue eyes, and I look exactly like the privileged Southern belle everyone assumes had life handed to her on a silver platter. They'd be half right. My sister had life handed to her. I had to fight for every single thing. See, there are 2 types of daughters in families like mine. The golden child, who can do no wrong, and the ghost child, who can't do anything right no matter how hard she tries. Guess which one I was. While Tara got a brand new car for bringing home C's with 1 B, I was buying my own used Honda for money from my 3 part-time jobs after maintaining a perfect 4.0. When Tara's art school dreams crashed and burned after blowing $45,000 in 2 semesters, our parents just smiled and said, "She's finding herself." When I got into Vanderbilt on a partial scholarship, they said, "We're so proud, honey, but you understand we can't help financially." Translation: every dollar my parents had went to fund Tara's potential. There was exactly 1 person in my family who saw me, really saw me. My grandmother Eleanor, sharp as a tack, quiet as a church mouse, and protective as a mama bear. Every Sunday, while my parents were attending Tara's latest hobby showcase, grandmother and I would sit in her garden talking about law school, building wealth, and creating something that lasts. Your parents have always confused wanting with needing, darling, she told me once, pruning her roses with surgical precision. At the time, I thought it was just grandmother being grandmother. I had no idea she was building me a weapon. When grandmother Eleanor died my senior year at Vanderbilt, she left me a $750,000 trust fund, specifically for law school and my first home. Nothing else. She made that crystal clear. My parents were named trustees until I turned 30. At the will reading, I watched them exchange glances when the attorney read the amount. There was something in my father's eyes I didn't recognize then. I recognize it now. It was calculation. "Your grandmother always think you needed special treatment," my father said that night, his tone just slightly off. "We'll be careful stewards of Eleanor's wishes," my mother added, her pageant queen smile perfectly in place. That night, they suddenly became very interested in my future, my law school plans, my potential salary, the opportunities ahead. I thought they were finally seeing me. They were seeing dollar signs. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that my grandmother had seen them too, and she'd added 1 clause to that trust agreement that would bring this whole house of cards crashing down. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, let me tell you about the 6 years I spent being slowly, systematically robbed by the 2 people who were supposed to protect me. I learned to be invisible at 7 years old. That was the year Tara was born, and suddenly every room in our Charleston house got a little darker when I walked in. Like someone had turned down a dimmer switch the moment my parents realized they'd finally gotten the daughter they actually wanted. Charleston's funny that way. It's all about appearances. The right address, the right clubs, the right smile at the right charity gala. My father, James Rivers, built half the McMansions dotting the waterfront. New money pretending to be old money, which is practically a competitive sport in the South. He ran our house like one of his construction sites. His blueprints, his timeline, his way or the highway. My mother, Patricia, was his perfect complement. Former Miss South Carolina runner-up, a fact she mentioned roughly as often as she breathed. She could make "bless your heart" sound like a benediction or a death threat, depending on who was listening. She weaponized charm the way other people weaponized honesty, and she was good at it. And then there was Tara. God, Tara was beautiful. The kind of effortless beauty that makes strangers stop on the street. Honey blonde hair that actually shimmered in sunlight. Green eyes like sea glass. And this laugh that sounded like wind chimes. She was also chronically incapable of finishing anything she started, allergic to responsibility, and had the financial sense of a lottery winner at a car dealership. My parents thought she was perfect. I was the other one. Look, I'm not saying I was some tragic Cinderella figure. I had my own room, food on the table, a roof over my head. But there's a difference between being provided for and being seen. I could bring home straight A's, win the state debate championship, and get elected student body president, and I'd get a distracted, "That's nice, honey," over my mother's shoulder while she was on the phone coordinating Tara's birthday party, the birthday party that was still 3 months away. Meanwhile, Tara brought home a C-plus semester with 1 B in gym class, and my father bought her a brand new Lexus. I bought my own car, a 1998 Honda Civic with 140,000 miles and a temperamental transmission, with money I'd saved from working 3 jobs. Retail on weekends, tutoring after school, and summer internships at law firms where I filed papers and fetched coffee and learned that competence is only rewarded if people are actually paying attention. Nobody was paying attention. The art school incident should have been my parents' wake-up call. Tara decided she wanted to be a painter. This was after the photography phase and before the jewelry making phase. So my parents enrolled her at this prestigious art institute in Savannah. $45,000 for 2 semesters. She lasted 6 months before deciding she needed to find herself instead. My parents just smiled. "She's exploring her potential," my mother said, like setting money on fire was a valid form of self-discovery. The next year, I got into Vanderbilt on a partial scholarship. Pre-law track, Dean's List potential, the whole 9 yards. I was so excited I could barely breathe when I showed them the acceptance letter. "We're so proud, honey," my mother said, that pageant smile perfectly in place. "But you understand we can't help financially. Your father's business has some cash flow issues right now." Translation: every dollar they had was already earmarked for whatever Tara decided she wanted next. I worked out the math that night. Between my scholarship, student loans, work-study programs, and the 3 jobs I was already planning to keep, I could just barely make it work. I'd graduate with debt, but I'd graduate. I should have been angry. Maybe I was. But mostly I was just tired. There was exactly one person who saw through the whole performance. Grandmother Eleanor. Grandmother Eleanor was old Charleston, the real old Charleston, not the new money pretending to be kind. Quiet, sharp-eyed, with this way of pruning her rose bushes like she was performing surgery. Every Sunday, while my parents were off attending whatever hobby showcase Tara had going that week, Grandmother and I would sit in her garden. We talk about law school, about building wealth that lasts, about the difference between looking successful and actually being successful. "Your parents have always confused wanting with needing, darling," she told me once, deadheading a particularly beautiful bloom. She said it so casually, like she was commenting on the weather. I laughed. "That's one way to put it." "It's the only way to put it." She looked over at me over her reading glasses. "Tara wants things. You need to build something. There's a difference." I didn't realize she was trying to tell me something important. I was so busy being competent, being capable, being the daughter who didn't need help, that I missed what Grandmother Eleanor was really saying. She saw me. She'd always seen me, and she was about to make damn sure everyone else did too. But that wouldn't happen until my senior year at Vanderbilt, the year everything changed. The year grandmother Eleanor died and left me a weapon disguised as an inheritance. Grandmother Eleanor was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer 3 weeks into my senior year at Vanderbilt. I got the call from my mother during constitutional law. She was crying. Actual tears, not the performance kind she usually deployed at garden club meetings when someone else got elected treasurer. The doctors say 6 months at most. I was in my car, heading back to Charleston within the hour. For the next 4 months, I lived between two worlds. Monday through Thursday, I was a pre-law student, maintaining a 3.9 GPA and pretending I could concentrate on tort reform while my grandmother was dying. Friday through Sunday, I was sleeping in hospital chairs that left permanent cricks in my neck, holding Eleanor's hand while she got smaller and smaller in that bed. Tara visited twice. Both times she lasted less than an hour before the hospital smell got to her and she needed to leave. My parents came daily, but there was something performative about it, like they were checking a box marked dutiful children, rather than actually sitting with their grief. Grandmother saw through it, naturally. She saw through everything. "You don't have to be here every weekend," she told me one Saturday afternoon. Her voice had gotten thin, papery, like the rest of her, but her eyes were still sharp. "Yes, I do," I said. She smiled. "Because you're the one who shows up. Always have been." "I know." She squeezed my hand with what little strength she had left. "I've watched them treat you like an afterthought for 22 years, sweetheart. Like you were less important because you didn't need constant rescue missions." I tried to laugh it off. "It's fine, I'm used to it." "It's not fine." Her grip tightened. "And I can't fix your parents. God knows I tried raising your father better than this. But I can protect your future." That's when she told me about the trust fund. $750,000, specifically designated for law school and my first home purchase. Nothing else. She'd been building it for years, quietly setting aside money from her investments, her late husband's life insurance, the sale of her family's original property downtown. "Your parents don't know yet," she said. "They'll find out at the will reading. I've named them temporary trustees until you turn 30. Standard practice, keeps the family politics simple. But there are strict usage guidelines, and I've added protections. Just in case." Just in case of what? She gave me a look that I would replay in my mind about 1,000 times over the next 6 years. Just in case they remembered they're your parents second and themselves first. I didn't understand what she meant. Not really, because even then, even after everything, I still believed my parents were fundamentally good people who'd just gotten their priorities twisted. I thought the trust fund would make them proud. Like, finally, here was proof that someone valued me, and maybe that would help them see my worth too. God, I was naive. Grandmother Eleanor died on a Tuesday in February. The funeral was standing room only. Old Charleston came out in force for one of their own. My father gave a beautiful eulogy about family legacy and enduring love. My mother wore black Chanel and cried prettily into a handkerchief. Tara looked like a Renaissance painting of grief. I sat in the front pew with dry eyes and thought about rose gardens and Sunday afternoons. The will reading was scheduled for the following Monday. We gathered in the offices of Whitmore and Associates, the law firm that had handled Eleanor's affairs for 40 years. The attorney, Richard Whitmore himself, was about 90 years old and had the kind of gravitas that made you sit up straight automatically. He went through the smaller bequests first, some jewelry for my mother, stock portfolios divided between various cousins, a donation to the Historical Society. Then he got to me. To my granddaughter, Arya Rivers, I leave a trust fund in the amount of $750,000 to be used exclusively for law school tuition and expenses and for the purchase of her first home. The silence in that office was deafening. I watched my parents' faces. My father's eyebrows went up just slightly, but enough. My mother's pageant smile flickered for a fraction of a second. Then they looked at each other, and something passed between them that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. "That's quite generous," my father said slowly. "Mother always did think Arya needed special treatment," he added, and there was an edge to it I couldn't quite name. My mother recovered faster, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "We'll be careful stewards of Eleanor's wishes," she said, warmth flooding back into her voice like someone had flipped a switch. "You must be so grateful, honey." Richard Whitmore cleared his throat. "As temporary trustees until Miss Rivers turns 30, you'll have fiduciary responsibility for the fund's management. The terms are quite specific regarding approved expenditures. I trust you've both read the documentation?" "Of course," my father said. They hadn't, I could tell. But they would. That night, back at the house, my parents suddenly became very interested in my future. When was I applying to law schools? Which ones? What were the employment statistics? What could I expect to make as a starting associate? "Columbia has great placement rates," my mother said brightly, pulling up their website on her phone. "New York's salary scales are so much higher than the South. We just want to make sure Eleanor's gift is used wisely. This is a serious investment in your future." I should have heard what they weren't saying, that their questions weren't about my dreams. They were about access, about what $750,000 could solve if they could just figure out how to get to it. But I was 22 years old, grieving, and desperate to believe that maybe grandmother's death had finally made them see me as something more than the competent one who didn't need help. I wanted to believe that love from the grave could change the living. I was wrong. Law school at Emory was supposed to be my fresh start. 3 years of brutal studying, law review, moot court competitions that had me functioning on 4 hours of sleep and enough coffee to kill a small horse. I loved every minute of it. The first request came 6 months in, right after I'd survived my first round of finals. "Sweetheart, your sister's starting a boutique." My mother's voice on the phone had that careful, measured quality that meant she'd rehearsed this. "She's got a wonderful business plan, real investors interested, but she needs $18,000 for initial inventory. Just a temporary loan from the trust." I was sitting in the library, surrounded by contract law textbooks and highlighters. That's not what grandmother intended. "Well, technically," not technically, literally, the trust is for law school and a house. My father got on the line. He always did when I pushed back. "Arya, where are the trustees? We're allowed some discretion in managing the fund. Your sister needs support." "She's had support. She's had nothing but support." "After everything we sacrificed raising you both," my mother cut in, and there it was, the guilt card perfectly played. "We're just asking you to help your sister get on her feet." I caved. First mistake of many. The boutique lasted 8 months before Tara decided retail wasn't her authentic calling. The $18,000 evaporated like morning dew on Charleston pavement. No repayment plan, no apology, just my mother's breezy, "These things happen," and my father's silence. Then came the business coaching. $8,000 for some guru who promised to help Tara unlock her entrepreneurial potential. Then $12,000 for a brand photo shoot that resulted in glossy images of my sister holding lattes and looking pensively at horizons. Each time, the same promise. "We'll pay you back, honey." Each time, nothing. I graduated law school top 10% of my class, passed the bar on my first try, accepted an associate position at Hartwell and Associates in Atlanta, prestigious firm, grueling hours, and a $125,000 starting salary that sounded impressive until you factored in the $70,000 in student loans I'd taken out because the trust fund was temporarily tight. Right. I drove home from my graduation celebration in my 11-year-old Honda Civic. The transmission was making a new grinding sound, and the AC only worked if you hit the dashboard at exactly the right angle. I pulled into my parents' driveway behind Tara's brand new Range Rover. "Early birthday gift," my mother explained brightly when I stared at it. My birthday was in 2 months. Tara's was in 7. "That's generous?" I managed. "Well, she's been working so hard on her boutique." My mother said this with a complete straight face, as if the boutique hadn't closed 6 months ago. I didn't ask where the money came from. I should have. But I was tired, and I had a job to start, and it was easier to just let it go. Atlanta became my refuge. 70-hour work weeks, brutal partner reviews, cases that consumed every waking thought. I was good at it. Really good. My supervising partner, Diane Kovacs, mentioned partner track at my second-year review. But she also mentioned something else. "Home ownership is important," she said, scanning my file. "Partners need to project stability. Clients like knowing their attorney is invested in the community." "I'm working on it," I lied. I wasn't working on it. I was barely treading water. Back in Charleston, my parents called monthly. The calls always followed the same pattern. 5 minutes of obligatory "how are you" small talk, then the real reason they'd called. "Tara's pivoting to life coaching. She just needs $15,000 for certification." "Tara's launching a lifestyle blog. Camera equipment is $7,000, but it's an investment." "Tara's starting a podcast. Studio setup is only $9,000. The life coaching certification never led to clients. The lifestyle blog got 12 followers, 10 of whom were relatives. The podcast published 3 episodes before Tara got bored. Meanwhile, her Instagram told a different story. 50,000 followers, designer everything, beach vacations and rooftop brunches, and #blessed posts about living authentically. 0 visible revenue. I started doing math in my head. The kind of math I was good at. The kind that added up even when you didn't want it to. Range Rover, 65,000. Designer wardrobe visible in photos, conservatively 30,000. The beachfront condo she posted from last month had to be 2,000 a month minimum. Business ventures that went nowhere, another 50,000 combined, probably more. My parents were both working. My father's development business was doing fine. Not great, but fine. My mother had her Mary Kay earnings, which amounted to roughly enough to cover her own inventory purchases. Where was all this money coming from? I was lying in my shoebox Atlanta apartment one night, 700 square feet that cost $1,800 a month because that's Atlanta for you, when it finally clicked. Really clicked. Not the vague unease that I had been pushing down for 3 years, but the cold, clear realization that made my stomach drop. I'd been funding Tara's fantasy life. Not helping with temporary loans, not supporting family. Funding. Present tense, ongoing. The trust fund that was supposed to get me through law school and into my first home was instead bankrolling my sister's Instagram aesthetic. I pulled out my laptop and started going through emails. Every request, every "just this once," every promise to repay. I made a spreadsheet because that's what you do when you're a corporate attorney who's been systematically robbed by your own family. The number made me nauseous. $147,000 in 3 years. And I hadn't even looked at the actual trust statements yet. At 27, I was a senior associate at Hartwell & Associates with a promotion to junior partner whispered in the hallways. 18 months out, maybe less if I kept up my billable hours and won the Sanderson case. I was finally building the life grandmother Eleanor had envisioned for me, which meant it was time to buy a house. The mortgage broker, enthusiastic woman named Leslie Thornton, ran my numbers and beamed at me across her desk. You're pre-approved for $450,000 with 20% down. Excellent credit score, stable income. You're exactly the kind of client we love. I found the perfect place within a week. A midtown townhouse for $425, exposed brick, walking distance to the firm, and a rooftop terrace where I could actually imagine myself drinking coffee on Sunday mornings instead of just surviving until Monday. It had hardwood floors and big windows, and it felt like proof that all those years of working myself to death had actually meant something. I called First Southern Bank's trust department on a Tuesday afternoon, standing on that rooftop terrace, already mentally arranging furniture. I need to transfer $90,000 for a down payment, I told the representative, a woman with a pleasant voice named Sandra. How quickly can we process that? There was a pause, just a beat too long. Miss Rivers, are you aware of your current balance? I laughed. Should be around $550,000 after law school expenses. I've been tracking it. Another pause. This one made my stomach tighten. Ma'am, your current balance is $118,432. The rooftop terrace tilted. Not metaphorically, actually tilted, like someone had picked up the building and shaken it. I grabbed the railing. That's impossible. My voice sounded strange, distant. Run it again. I've double-checked, Miss Rivers. The balance is correct. Over $400,000? Gone. I couldn't breathe right. I need a full transaction history, every withdrawal, every transfer. I need it now. I can email that to you within the hour. The email arrived in 43 minutes. 37 pages. I printed every single one, watching my color printer spit out sheet after sheet of my family's theft. 83 separate transactions over 6 years. I spread them across my apartment floor because my dining table wasn't big enough, arranged them chronologically because that's what you do when your brain is short-circuiting and you need order. You need to understand how the people who raised you could do this. The patterns emerged like a crime scene reconstruction. 18,000, Tara's boutique, right there in black and white labeled business investment. 15,000, coaching certification. 25,000 marked just family expense, which could have meant anything, but definitely meant Tara. 12,000, 8,000, 19,000, 7,000. Then the big ones. $52,000, single withdrawal, labeled educational expense. I grabbed my phone and scrolled back through Instagram, found the post, Tara in front of the Eiffel Tower, sunset lit and glowing, caption reading, "Sometimes you have to travel to find your authentic self. Soul journey, finding me, blessed." My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. Educational expense. She went to Paris on my money while I was eating ramen and taking the bus because I couldn't afford to fix my car's transmission. I kept going. 38,000, home improvement. Tara had posted about her newly renovated apartment that month. 29,000, medical emergency. Tara got her teeth professionally whitened. 23,000, vehicle maintenance. The Range Rover. They weren't even trying to hide it. They just took it over and over. Death by 1,000 cuts, except each cut was thousands of dollars and my grandmother's love letter to my future. I called my parents, didn't think about it, didn't plan what to say, just hit the contact and listened to it ring. "Darling, what a nice surprise!" My mother sounded so genuinely happy, like she hadn't been systematically robbing me for 6 years. "I just checked my trust fund balance," I told the representative, a woman with a pleasant voice named Sandra. Pause. Too long. Way too long. When she spoke again, the cheerfulness had cracked just slightly. "Oh, well, we've been helping Tara establish her career." "With my money?" I was standing now, pacing between the printed pages like they were evidence markers. "For her Instagram hobby? Her Paris vacation?" Now, Arya, you need to understand, I understand perfectly. You stole $400,000 from me. My father's voice cut in. He must have grabbed the phone. Now you listen here, young lady. We are the trustees of that fund. I hung up, just pressed the red button, and ended the call. And then I stood there in my tiny apartment surrounded by 37 pages of betrayal and felt something shift inside me. The shock was burning off, replaced by something colder, clearer, rage. Not the hot, explosive kind, the calculated kind, the attorney kind. They'd made a mistake. A huge, catastrophic, absolutely devastating mistake. They'd stolen from a corporate lawyer who'd spent 3 years learning how to destroy people in court. And I had receipts. 37 pages of them. I looked down at the transaction histories, at my grandmother's trust fund bled dry to fund my sister's make-believe life, and something occurred to me. Something grandmother Eleanor had said in that hospital room, her grip tight on my hand. I have added protections, sweetheart, just in case. I thought she meant standard trustee oversight, fiduciary duty requirements, the usual legal safeguards. What if she meant something more? I grabbed my laptop and pulled up the original trust documents. All 63 pages I'd never bothered to read completely because I'd trusted my parents to handle it. Time to stop trusting. Time to start reading the fine print. Monday morning, I called the bank before my coffee finished brewing, before I could talk myself out of it, before the shock could wear off and some misguided sense of family loyalty could creep back in. I need a meeting with the trust division manager. Today. I was sitting across from Diane Mitchell by 10 a.m. She was maybe 60, steel gray hair cut in a sharp bob, the kind of woman who probably alphabetized her spice rack and kept her car maintenance records in color-coded binders. She had reading glasses on a chain around her neck and the no-nonsense energy of someone who'd seen every financial scheme imaginable and was impressed by exactly none of them. Ms. Rivers, she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk, I've already initiated a compliance audit based on your inquiry Friday. That was fast. Your grandmother was a valued client for 40 years. When irregularities appear in her trust fund, we take it seriously. She spread documents across her desk like a dealer showing a royal flush. 83 unauthorized withdrawals over 6 years, total of $407,568. Unauthorized? I leaned forward. They're the trustees. Don't they have discretion? Diane's smile was grim. Read your grandmother's trust agreement. Section 9. She produced the original document, 63 pages, my grandmother's signature on the last page, 2 attorney witnesses, dated 3 months before she died. I'd skimmed it at the will reading. Nobody actually reads these things cover to cover, right? Wrong. I flipped to section 9, started reading, stopped breathing somewhere around paragraph 2. Breach a fiduciary duty clause, Diane said, watching my face. Any withdrawal not explicitly for the granddaughter's education or approved housing purchase constitutes a loan to the trustees. I kept reading. The words were swimming, but I forced myself to focus. Interest rate of 8% compounded annually, I read aloud. All loans become immediately due upon discovery of breach of fiduciary duty. Keep going, Diane said quietly. In the event of non-payment, the bank is authorized to pursue full legal recovery, including but not limited to liens, wage garnishment, and asset seizure. My hands were shaking. Trustees have 30 days from notice to remit full payment. I looked up at Diane. What's the total, with interest? She turned her computer monitor toward me. The number at the bottom of the spreadsheet was in red. $523,847. That's more than they took, I whispered. Compound interest over 6 years. Diane removed her glasses, let them hang on the chain. Your grandmother wasn't playing games, Ms. Rivers. I started laughing. Couldn't help it. It came out slightly unhinged because I was slightly unhinged, but God, it was funny. 6 years of being the responsible one, the one who didn't cause problems, the one who just absorbed every betrayal with quiet competence. And all along, Grandmother Eleanor had left me a nuclear weapon disguised as a trust fund clause. She knew. She knew they'd do this. Diane nodded slowly. Eleanor and I set up this trust together, spent 3 meetings getting every word exactly right. She told me, I remember this clearly, Diane, my son thinks he's smarter than everyone in the room. Make sure he learns differently. What happens now? The bank is legally obligated to pursue full recovery. We'll send preliminary notice today. Your parents have 30 days to pay the full amount or enter into a payment arrangement with penalties. If they refuse or can't pay, we proceed with liens and asset seizure. Liens on what? Any property titled in their names. Bank accounts, investment accounts, the house if necessary. Diane's expression softened slightly. I know this is your family, Ms. Rivers, if you want to halt the process. Don't. The word came out sharp. Don't halt anything. Send the notice. She studied me for a moment, then nodded. The preliminary notice will go out this afternoon via email and certified mail. I stood up, gathered my copies of the documents. Thank you, Diane. Your grandmother would be proud of you, she said as I reached the door. I turned back. Would she? She told me you were the strong one, the one who would survive them. Diane put her glasses back on. I'd say she was right. My phone started exploding around 2 p.m. 14 missed calls from my mother, 8 from my father, 12 text messages that progressed from confused to angry to panicked. Ira, call me immediately. There's been a mistake with the bank. This is ridiculous. We need to straighten this out. How could you do this to your family? That last one was from my mother. The audacity was almost impressive. My father's final text came through at 4:47 p.m. Call immediately. Bank making terrible mistake. We can explain everything. I stared at it for a long moment. Thought about 6 years of explanations, 6 years of temporary loans and family support, and you understand we can't help financially. 6 years of funding Tara's fantasy life while I drove a car held together with duct tape and prayer. I typed back, no mistake, see you Saturday, bring your checkbook. Then I did something I should have done years ago. I blocked Tara's number entirely. Bought a bottle of wine that cost more than my usual $7 special, sat on my apartment floor surrounded by 37 pages of transaction histories and 63 pages of trust documents, and felt the power shift in my chest like tectonic plates rearranging themselves. The hunted had just become the hunter, and I'd learned from the absolute best in the business. Corporate attorneys who made people cry in depositions, who could find loopholes in contracts written by Harvard grads, who knew exactly how to destroy someone while smiling pleasantly across a conference table. My parents were about to find out what happens when you steal from a lawyer. Specifically, when you steal from this lawyer. Saturday couldn't come fast enough. I left Atlanta at 6 a.m. Saturday morning. Didn't trust myself to drive the night before. Too much rage makes for bad highway decisions. The briefcase on my passenger seat contained 37 pages of transaction histories, the complete trust document with Section 9 highlighted in yellow, and a repayment agreement I drafted myself using the same merciless precision I applied to corporate contracts. My parents' house looked exactly the same. White columns, manicured lawn, the kind of southern mansion that screamed old money, even though it was built in 1987. All that beauty hiding rot underneath, like a cake that looks perfect until you cut into it and find it's hollow. Tara's Range Rover sat in the driveway next to my parents' Mercedes. Of course she was here, probably called in as backup, ready to cry on cue. I walked in without knocking. My mother was in the hallway, makeup perfect even at 8 a.m., wearing pearls like armor. Arya, sweetheart, I'm so glad you came so we can clear up this misunderstanding. Dining room. Now. I'd staged it like a courtroom. Placed myself at the head of the table, my father's usual spot, spread the transaction histories across the mahogany surface like evidence markers, set the trust document at the center, section 9 facing up. They filed in, my father first, jaw tight, trying to project authority he no longer had. My mother next, dabbing her eyes preemptively. Tara last, looking smaller somehow, her designer outfit suddenly seeming like a costume. My parents sat down at the side of his own table and immediately tried to take control. Arya, this has gotten completely out of hand. If we just sit down reasonably. Quiet. I'm talking now. His mouth opened, closed. He sat back. I gestured to the papers. 83 withdrawals. 6 years. $407,568. My mother gasped, hand flying to her throat. Where did you get those? The bank you've been stealing from. We didn't steal, my father started, finding his voice. We made executive trustee decisions in the best interest of the family. My laugh came out sharp, humorless. Interesting interpretation. Let's see what grandmother's attorney says. I pulled the trust document forward, rotated it so they could read it. This is the original trust agreement. Section 9. Read it. My mother reached for it with shaking hands. I watched her eyes move across the page, watched the exact moment she understood. The color drained from her face. Any withdrawal not explicitly for the granddaughter's education or first home purchase constitutes a breach of fiduciary duty, I read out loud, my attorney voice filling the dining room, and shall be classified as a loan to the trustees bearing interest at 8% compounded annually, immediately due upon discovery of breach. My mother looked up. This can't be legal. It's completely legal. Grandmother had it reviewed by 3 attorneys before she died. I smiled. She knew exactly what she was doing. Arya? Tara's voice was small. I didn't know the money was yours. No, you just thought money magically appeared for every whim you had? The boutique, the life coaching, the trip to Paris, the Range Rover sitting in the driveway right now. She flinched. My father stood up, palms flat on the table. You're not going to... Sit down. It was my courtroom voice, the one that made opposing counsel nervous, the one that won cases, the one that came from somewhere cold and certain and absolutely done with being dismissed. He sat. I gestured to the papers. 83 withdrawals. 6 years. $407,568. My mother turned tearful. We can't afford that. Then you'll downsize, sell the boat, the lake house, your country club membership. I genuinely don't care how you do it. And option B, my father's voice was tight. The bank files legal action Monday morning. They seize assets immediately. You pay all attorney fees, and it becomes public record. I let that sink in. Your country club friends would love that story. The silence was deafening. My father's face went red, then white, then a mottled combination of both. Defeated, furious, trapped. My mother was crying real tears now. Not the manipulative kind she deployed at garden parties, but the kind that came from actual consequences finally arriving. Then, Tara stood up. I'm selling my car. Everyone turned to stare at her. And the jewelry. All of it. Every designer bag, every piece of jewelry, everything I bought with... Her voice cracked. Everything I bought with your money. I'm selling it and putting it toward paying you back. I studied her, looking for the manipulation, the performance, found something different instead. Shame. Real, genuine shame. This is my fault too. I took advantage. I lived off your trust fund and told myself I deserved it. I'm helping pay it back. It was the first genuine thing I'd heard Tara say in years. My father reached for the pen with shaking hands, signed every page of the repayment agreement, his signature getting sloppier with each one. My mother signed next, mascara running down her cheeks in black rivers. I collected the documents, put them back in my briefcase. First payment is due in 30 days. Don't be late. I walked out, didn't look back. The fallout was spectacular. My parents listed the mansion within a week, $2.3 million asking price. The Charleston gossip circuit went absolutely nuclear. My mother called 3 days later, sobbing. How can you do this to your own parents? How could you steal from your own daughter? I hung up. Tara actually followed through. Sold the Range Rover, the designer bags, the jewelry collection. Deposited $42,000 directly into the trust restoration account. Then she called me. I was a spoiled brat who thought the world owed me everything. No excuses. No justifications. I'm sorry. She got a job at a marketing firm, entry level, 9 to 5. Learning humility one staff meeting at a time. The monthly payments arrived like clockwork. $9,500, never late. Liens are powerful motivation. My parents sold the mansion, bought a modest condo in Jacksonville, left Charleston entirely. The social humiliation was complete. My father sent one bitter email. You've destroyed this family. I wrote back, no, you did that 20 years ago. 18 months later, the trust balance hit $650,000. I went back to house hunting, this time with power, not desperation. Found a perfect townhouse, modern, 3 bedrooms, rooftop garden where I could actually breathe. On closing day, I brought grandmother Eleanor's photo. Set it on the table while I signed the papers, like she was witnessing this moment she'd protected from beyond the grave. I texted Tara. Just bought my first home. Grandmother would be proud. Her response came immediately. She would be. Can I visit once you're settled? Tara had actually changed. Real job, small apartment, authentic life built on her own income. She moved to Atlanta 6 months later for better opportunities. We started having monthly dinners, honest conversations, mutual support, actual sisterhood, built on truth instead of hierarchy. My parents sent their final email 2 years after that confrontation. Debt satisfied. Don't contact us again. I felt nothing but relief. I didn't want their contact anyway. The housewarming party was small. Law firm colleagues, real friends, Tara. My senior partner raised a glass. To Arya, who taught us that enforcing boundaries isn't selfish, it's survival. Late that night, Tara and I sat on my rooftop terrace. Do you think they'll ever apologize? Nope. And I don't need them to. Doesn't that hurt? It used to. Now I know their opinion of me isn't my problem. I looked at her. You're making it right. That's what matters. The partnership announcement came 3 months later. I opened the letter in my home office, grandmother Eleanor's photo on my desk, trust statement showing the full $750,000 restored. I raised my wine glass to her picture. Thanks for the safety net, grandmother. I didn't fall. Some people never change. That's okay. You can let them go. Justice doesn't require forgiveness. Boundaries don't need apologies to be valid. And the best revenge? It's a life well lived on your own terms. So here's my question for you. Do you think my parents will ever actually apologize? Or are some people just incapable of admitting they were wrong? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. If you've ever had to enforce boundaries with family who thought you'd just keep taking it, hit that like button so I know I'm not alone in this. Subscribe because I've got more stories about standing up when everyone expects you to sit down. And seriously, turn on notifications. Next week's story involves a wedding, a will, and a cousin who thought she could steal my inheritance, you won't want to miss it.